I have one of my favorite people on the planet as our next guest. He's somebody that I met last year, and we had him on our summit last year, and he was a huge success. People loved this guy, and so I wanted to bring him back for an encore. His name is Raymond Grace, and we'll talk a little bit about his story, but he's somebody that grew up in the mountains of Virginia, and I've actually gotten to go visit him, go through one of his trainings, go to the beautiful land that he lives on and ride around with him in his four-wheeler and meet his beautiful, lovely wife. And so I've got a chance to really experience, where he is. And it's just such an amazing piece of land that you have and part of the world you live in, and such an amazing man. Raymond is one of my go-to people in terms of shifting reality. He has one of the strongest belief systems, I think, of anybody on the planet. He works a lot with intent. He doesn't really believe in limitations. And that's what I love about him. And he's really out there changing the world for the better, helping human beings heal, but also working on water across the world. He's got the Raymond Grace Foundation, cleaning up water around the world, and all sorts of good things. Raymond, it's great to be with you again. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And so I said this the last time we interviewed you for the Global Energy Healing Summit. When most people think of an energy healer, they don't think of somebody that, lives on a mountain and, talks with a Southern drawl. They think of some hippy dippy type person. So you don't fit the mold. So just quickly share with us your story about how you became so interested in working with energy, and a little bit about how you got so good at it too.
Well, I'll keep this brief. If I talk too long, just tell me to stop.
Okay.
But when I was about 16 years old, I was in an algebra class, and the teacher made a statement that day that Einstein, according to the scientific studies, had used only approximately 10% of his brain. Well, I had heard of Einstein, but I really had no clue who he was. But I had gotten the impression that he was a very intelligent person. So I had the thought that day, if he only used 10% of his brain, wonder what he could have done if he could have used 25%. Mm-hmm. Well, I set out on a quest that day without telling anybody what I was doing. And that is still going on today, many years later. Of what can we do with our mind? So that has led me down a lot of long, crooked dirt roads sometimes. Sometimes were dead ends, sometimes they were very rewarding. So that's really what I did. I started reading everything I could get my hands on that was unusual and what you might call not common knowledge. Well, later on, became a lecturer for Jose Silva with his Silva Mind Control, and I learned quite a bit from him. Incorporated that with some shamanism, which the Native American people had always interested me, and I got to be friends with some very good ones. And then I learned about dowsing, and I found out that we could do a lot of things with dowsing that the average person never heard of before. Yeah. So what I really did, I incorporated all of those trainings and experiences into one, and that's the class that you attended. It was a mixture of all three of those things: mind control, shamanism, and dowsing, along with just thinking with an open mind and wondering, okay, what can we do next? So that's how I got to where I am.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That is such a, I mean, you gave a very brief version of it, but it's an amazing story. A young guy in algebra class hearing that Einstein only used 10% of his mind and deciding, all right, I'm going to use more of my mind. And you certainly have done that. And I think you would, you are many years into this quest, but I love the fact that you said also you're still learning every day. And that's one of the things I love about you. You're still trying new things. You're learning, you're exploring, you're very inquisitive. And it's so cool to see. So let's get into some of your philosophies. So I know that you believe everything's energy, and Einstein said that too, and that energy follows thought. And so when we think things, we literally are creating our future. Talk to us more about that, because I think people hear that, right? And they've heard that maybe from other sources, but you are one of the biggest believers and so committed to this concept. Talk a little bit more about why this is so critical for people that want to heal or improve their lives.
Well, the future is composed of thoughts not yet materialized. That is a quote I got from Jose Silva. He was a very intelligent man. I learned a lot from him. So if we want to change our lives, we have to change the way we think, because energy follows thought, and our thoughts affect our belief system. And our belief system is the dominant factor that controls everything that happens to us. Whether we believe we can or whether we believe we can't, we're right. So we're always going to do better believing that we can accomplish something rather than believing that we're weak or helpless and there's nothing we can do about it. Yeah. So I think people give me more credit for intelligence than I might be correct. But the biggest thing I have going for me is I just don't know I can't. And that's it. I'm willing to try anything that seems to be reasonable, that or even within reason, that might possibly work. And I do my best not to dwell upon lack and limitations, but to dwell upon success and accomplishments. And now, I've found out that what I was saying and giving a hillbilly version of what other knowledgeable people had said centuries ago, like an old German philosopher, I believe his name was Goethe, spelled G-O-T-H-E. He said, see a man as he is and he'll get worse. See him as he could be and he will improve. Why? Because if you see a person doing better than what they are doing, you're sending energy to make that happen. And energy follows thought. As a matter of fact, Willie Nelson has a song out now, Energy Follows Thought. I'm glad Willie made that song. I'm hoping it's going to change a lot of people's mind out there in the world that yes, you really do have ability to create your own future. And that's probably the biggest message that I have to offer to people is you create your own future, and you do it by starting with the way you think. Because then if you think a certain way, in a better way, you will act better. If you act better, better things will happen to you. It's really pretty simple.
Yeah, I love that. You know, and it's such a simple concept, and people I think have all dabbled in it. Like they've tried it for I'll try it for the next day or the next hour. I'll see myself better than I am, or, focus more on where I want to go. They don't stick with it. You've stuck with it, for so many years. And why do you think, and, maybe we don't have the answer, but why do you think people struggle so much with focusing more on what they really want? They get so stuck in focusing on where they are, the lack or the illness. What is it about human beings that makes this, it's such a simple message, but it makes it so challenging for people to do it? And what advice would you have for people that really want to do it, but have tried it and failed in the past?
Well, I think a lot of it, especially in the world that I lived in, comes from association with other people.
Yeah.
And I lived in a culture, and I think a lot of people do, where people beat themselves down. Humility may not be such a bad thing, but it has been highly overrated. So if you grew up in a culture where people talked about their aches and pains, their lack, their limitations, they dwelt on poverty, how can you ever expect to do any better if you continue to follow that path? So what I did, I decided to become an independent thinker. I wouldn't let anybody else think for me. I'd make my own decisions.
Mhm.
And Tom, I've done a lot of stuff in the world or around the world in the last probably 25, 30 years. And not one time did I ever ask anybody, can I do this? I just did it.
Yeah.
Because if I had asked if I could clean up a lake in Australia, and we had this story on the last interview we did, where I got 27 emails from people who were in on a very small conference there. I was doing by Skype or Zoom or whatever. But 27 people wrote me thanking me for giving them better tasting water. Well,
Yeah.
now the world knows that's impossible, but I didn't know it. So I'm very thankful to be able to do that for people. Matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, I did a film with a couple in Alaska, and right at the end of the film, matter of fact, that is in my newsletter that
Yeah.
April sent out for me yesterday, I believe it was.
I saw that. Yeah.
And at the end of the film, the couple said that they had very poor tasting water there.
Mhm.
And I said, well, let me see what I can do. And I worked on it, 30 seconds maybe. And I said, now go to the kitchen, get you a glass of water, come back in here to where I can see you on the camera and take a sip of it. Well, I do this to a lot of people in Australia, Europe, across America. If I'm doing a Zoom or Skype session with them, and I'll ask them to go get a cup of water, sit down in front of the camera. Now, take a sip, and because I want to see their face. Well, it changes. They look happy. The water tastes good.
Mhm.
Okay, Tom, I've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the simple things because I set a goal probably about 37 years ago to start to clean up the water on this planet. I had no clue how I was going to do it. I just set a goal to do it. And I never lost sight of that goal. I was just determined. I
Yeah.
will learn how to clean up water and help the people I work with to have good tasting water. I do it for every class that I teach. I say, you folks get home, there'll be good tasting water run out of your faucet.
Mhm.
Well, there is. I get a lot of emails back, a lot of folks thanking me, very thankful to do it. Now, have I reached a point I can do it for the entire world? Not yet. I may or may not ever reach that point because people have to take responsibility for themselves.
Yeah.
And we got to get people off of spiritual welfare. I'm in the business of teaching people, not doing things for them. Yeah, I'll do something like give them a good taste of water run out of the faucet because I want attention. If they can believe that, then they can probably believe something else that they might be able to do.
Yeah.
So that's the best way that I'm going to help people is first give them something that gets their attention and then show them how to do it.
Yeah.
And some people will, some people won't. Actually, most people won't.
Yeah.
And that's why I say we got to get people off of spiritual welfare. If they're going to accomplish anything, they got to do something.
Yeah. And this is really important. I think a lot of people think, I can just go to an energy healer and that person's going to fix me. But if you have the same old crappy belief system and same old thoughts, maybe what they do will have an impact, but you're going to put yourself back into that situation or create a stuckness because of what you're thinking and what your belief system is. And so I love that. People need to take responsibility for their own healing and take responsibility for the planet. I mean, you're literally, and Raymond is doing this. When he says cleaning up the water, he's not flying to Australia and, getting in the water and doing things. He's doing it with his mind. Talk to us about how that can be done. Because for some people, this may be a new concept. Like, Raymond, how can you clean up water in Australia when you're in the mountains of Virginia and you're doing it with your mind? Explain your belief system around that, because not only can you clean up water, you can help people heal remotely, right? Not just you, anyone can, right? If they're trained, and you do great classes on that. You can help people be happier, have more prosperity, all sorts of things can be done within your mind. So talk about your belief system around that, that you don't have to even be with the person or be at the water source. You can do it through your mind anywhere in the world, or maybe even in the universe.
Well, let me start out to say that I first learned a trick from Jose Silva. I always like to give credit wherever it's due, and I learned a lot from the man. Now, I don't have a glass or cup here with me right now, but I'm just going to use my hands here so the camera can pick it up. But back in January of '97, I had learned to energize about a half small glass of water, like whatever my fingers would cover right here. If I had a glass of water in my hand, I could enter, if as long as I didn't fill the glass any higher than the length of my fingers here, I could energize that water. Well, why did I have that belief system? Well, I had seen Jose Silva do it, and he had, even though I greatly respect the fella, he was limited to the belief that he could energize only as much as his fingers would cover. Okay. Now, that's what I was doing. Why? Because it was all I knew how to do, and I wanted to share it with people. I think I'm going to teach the entire class how to do this. Well, there was a man in class that day, and you met him, Jeff Jones.
Yeah.
And I'd never met Jeff before. He just had heard about the class and showed up. And he said, "Are you energizing water?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess so." He said, "You're putting energy in water, is that correct?" And I said, "Well, as far as I know, that's what I'm doing." He said, "Well, if you're putting energy in that water, I can put vitamins and minerals in it." I said, "Well, I never thought about that, but you're probably right. Go ahead and give it a try. You got nothing to lose." Well, he found out that he could put vitamins and minerals in that water, and he didn't have to eat food. He didn't particularly want to eat food anyway. As a matter of fact, Jeff is a local person here. And whenever I teach classes, I usually invite him up at his convenience just to give a talk to the rest of the folks, let them ask any questions he wants, because he's a very unusual person and he's accomplished what I don't know anyone else has ever accomplished. He basically has lived on water for 25 years now. And there's people that says that can't be done. Well, for those people saying that, they probably can't do it, but he doesn't know that he can't, so he does.
Yeah.
Not only that, he started using the method I taught him to energize water by holding it like that for a while. And then he finally said, "Well, why should I do that? Why don't I just energize water with intent?" So every time he buys a bottle of water, as soon as he picks it up, it immediately becomes energized. This is the power of intent.
Yeah.
Now, I get a lot of questions asking, well, how do you change water on the other side of the world? Or how do you stop a serial killer and make them less dangerous? How do you clean up various places? I can sum it up in one word: intent. But what really gives the intent power? So let's get a little bit technical here. It is focusing with the brain in a lower vibration. For example, what is known as the alpha, ALPHA, alpha brain frequency. That is really where the power of thought is in low brain frequencies. So by thinking and adjusting my brain to that frequency, that adds power to your thoughts. And I know the question is going to be, well, how do you do that? And you do it with imagination and with intention and by relaxation. Alpha frequency is another way of saying relaxing the brain. It's a simple way of saying it, but that's really what it is. And when you reach that level, your brain has more power than it does in a normal beta brain frequency. So it's really simple. People want to complicate things way too much, but all it really is relaxation and imagination, really nothing else.
I love that.
And so there's no reason to use a lot of big words or too many words. That's it right there. Relax your mind, use imagination, you can perform miracles.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to complicate it.
Well, and that's really important, though, because I think a lot of people are trying to do it with a busy mind, right? And so what Raymond just said is when you lower the brainwave frequency to an alpha state, a kind of a meditative, almost daydreaming state. You've taught me this, that thoughts have more power, right? They're
Yeah.
going to be more able to create what you want.
Now you can call it meditation, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or you can call it imagination, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's probably one and the same.
Yeah.
Both will put you in a lower brain frequency.
Yeah.
I don't want to get real technical on brain frequencies in this interview because we've got a lot of other things to talk about. But basically, relax your mind, concentrate. Whenever you concentrate on something, as I think I did the demonstration in the class you were in, imagine what something looks like, smells like, tastes like, feels like. Employ your five senses. That and thinking about something will help you to lower your brain frequency. And then think of what you want to happen.
Yeah.
Einstein and Willie Nelson both say energy follows thought.
I like how you worked Willie Nelson in with Einstein. That's good. I like that. One of the other things I thought was really cool that you've taught me is, so you talked about the five senses, but when you're visualizing, using your hands, right, and arms, how that accentuates and powers up your thoughts also. Why is
the way I say it, Tom, is our hands are exclamation points for our thoughts.
Okay.
I don't know if I told the story about cutting the tornado in half or not, but I use my hands and a knife to do that. I've also split clouds a lot to part the rain. And I don't do this just for fun. I don't do it just for somebody's convenience so much. I do it, if it really needs to be done. Now, I'm not going to say that I've always succeeded. That's not true. I'm just saying that I win more than I lose.
Yeah. Raymond, 1 second. My mother-in-law is here. I've got to have her go the other way. Okay.
No problem.
I'm going to edit that out. My mother-in-law is 90 years old and she's got dementia. And I forgot to lock my office door. So she just walked in and her walker. So she would have come up and, but anyways.
That's okay. No problem.
Yeah, we'll edit this part out. Okay, cool. Let me just see here. All right, belief system frequency. Okay, so let me start. Also edit from here. So that's awesome. Exclamation points. That's a cool way of thinking about it. And actually, when I do that, when I take your advice and I use my hands, I can literally feel like exclamation points happening in my body and my mind. So that is a really, really cool technique. And you've got so many things. I mean, I hope people that are watching this will check out what you offer, the classes, the books, the videos that they can get from you. Where can they, we'll tell everyone again about this later on, but where can they get in touch with you, Raymond?
Through my website, raymondgrace.us.
Okay. And that's where they can get the newsletter and all sorts of different classes and things like that from you, right?
Well, we send out a free newsletter. We get it out every month. And all you have to do is go to RaymondGraceFoundation.org and sign up for it. It's free.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that, we've talked about is you've been measuring energy for many, many years, and you do it through dowsing, which we'll talk about dowsing a little bit later. And maybe you'll even do a little dowsing for everybody just so that when they watch this, they can have an experience of that. But one of the things that you've discovered through your own methodology of measuring energy is that there seems to be more energy now. on the planet, which is exciting to me because it's like, hey, things are accelerating. We can create things quicker and faster. But can you talk a little bit about that?
I can talk a little bit about it. To be quite honest, I'm not sure that I have all of the right answers. And I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just going to tell you what I have found. I learned to measure energy from an old trapper living up in a very remote section of northern Alberta. No running water, no electricity. I learned more from him about energy than I have from everyone else combined. And he taught me how to measure energy back in 98. And back around the turn of the century, I was making talks across the country. And I talked a lot about energy back then. I don't talk as much about it now, but I will say a few things. This is what I believe happened, but I don't know for a fact I'm right, because there is something called Schumann, Schuman, Schumann resonance. And it was the vibration of the earth. The Native American people knew that. They didn't have any technology to measure it with, they just knew it. But they called it the heartbeat of the Mother Earth. I think they were saying exactly the same thing.
Like that.
And it vibrated according to the scientific scale of 7.83 hertz. Now, when I say that, I'm already above my pay grade. But related more to the Native American way of saying the heartbeat of the Mother Earth. Well, on the 4th of December of 98, that seemed to have changed. It speeded up, and I had no clue what was happening, but I started measuring what I call the energy of the earth. And I won't get into too many numbers here, but I saw it start to change gradually at first. I really didn't know what was happening, but I was making talks pretty much across America then. And I was telling folks what I had found, and I found that other people hardly knew anything at all about it, and I didn't know very much. But I have continued to measure the energy, and every day I do that. So anytime I'm working with a client, the first thing I do is measure the energy of their body. And then I measure the energy of their home. I have my own scale, which I don't want to get into details here. It gets a little too complicated. But the people with low energy are not able to accomplish as much. And I found by getting rid of certain things affecting them or changing the energy around their environment, that we can change the energy within their physical body. Now, one statement I would like to make is that energy is contagious. Energy is more contagious than disease. So if you associate with people of low energy, they won't pick you up, they will drag you down. You see, anytime you put two unequal items together, I don't know, there may be an exception, but I'm not aware of it. The higher energy will not pick up the item or person of low energy. The reverse is true. Low energy will bring down the high energy. For example, I was a construction foreman. I had some pretty good people working for me in my crew. I could hire a lazy man and he would drag them down. They wouldn't pick him up. He would drag them down.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. If you could take a box of good apples and you put a rotten apple in there, in a matter of short time, every apple in the box will be rotten. But you can't take a good apple and put in a box of rotten apples and purify all of them. This is totally contrary to nature. And the human race ain't quite figured that one out yet. They're still trying to get low energy to pick, or trying to get high energy to pick up those of low energy. It just don't work. Never has, never will.
That's, I love your example, a rotten apple. That's awesome.
It's the same thing in a herd of horses. You got a herd of horses out there that's all pretty gentle, but you buy a new horse and put him in and he's wild. Well, they tame him down, not very well. He'll make them wilder. Same thing with cattle. I've observed a lot about animals and people over the years, and it's always if you got one cow that is tearing down a fence, getting out, they'll let the other cows out.
Mm.
But will that herd of calm cows calm down the wild one? No,
Mm.
doesn't hardly work that way.
Yeah.
The same thing with people. That's why I tell parents, be careful who you let your kids associate with. Your
Yeah.
kids may, by some miracle, pick up the ones that are troublesome, but the odds are that the troublesome are going to bring down the ones that are pretty good kids.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so critical, like who you hang out with, because everything's energy. And what you just said is like, you hang out with the wrong energy, it can start to drag you down. And even if it doesn't, it just makes everything harder for you because you've got to overcome that energy field that you're in. I feel very blessed over the course of my last, 30 some years of really getting to hang out with people that believe that things are possible. They're not complaining all the time. And I take it for granted. Like, I get to hang out with people like you, but the reality is most people on the planet don't have that, but they can start consciously choosing more of that, which is really cool.
Well, yes, your life is always going to be better if you associate with honest people
Yeah.
and people of good character.
Yeah.
It's really a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But I don't think most of the population figured it out yet.
Yeah. And that's even true in what you watch on TV. When you watch a show that is, got all sorts of bad things happening in it, right? You absorb some of that energy, right? You have to process.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We are affected by what we see and what we hear, whether we believe it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you logically know, oh, that's just a TV show. But it's a TV show of people fighting, having contradictions with each other, having problems. I choose not to watch that, so
Yeah.
I don't. So the one thing that I like to tell people is you have choices, and so take them.
Yeah.
I choose what I eat. I choose who I talk to. I I choose not to watch TV. Why? Because there's more people that are wanting to talk to me than that can probably be benefited, at least be pleasant, than for me to watch some silly show on TV with people fighting. I just won't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm of course, you know me, you've been to my house. I live like a hermit. I'm way back in the mountains. I like it that way. And that's why I have fewer problems.
Yeah.
Because I don't get myself involved in the problems of the world. Do I do sessions with people? Yes, of course. I try to help them. But Tom, what I tell them is right off the bat, I said, tell me in one sentence how I can help you. I do not want to hear a long list of your misery, and I won't listen. If you start that, I'll hang the phone up. I want you to tell me in one sentence how I can help you.
Yeah.
If they can do that, I probably can help them. If they can't do that, I say, you really need to call somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. You're very direct. And so you're getting the real deal here and seeing Raymond. But I will say he's got a huge heart. He's got one of the most caring and loving human beings I know, but he's gotten to the age and point in his life where and probably he was like this even when he was younger. He's like, he's not going to put up with a bunch of crap. Like, we're either going to get it done or we're not going to do it. So I love that about you. One thing you taught me, which I still use frequently, is when you do encounter somebody, let's say you're having an issue with the bank or something like that, and someone's not treating you well, the customer service person, I think you remember what you told me, but tell them what you do in your mind when you're encountering somebody that's not being nice to you or somebody that's having a hard day. How you visualize them in your mind and help
Okay.
change that.
I'll be glad to do that, but I seldom ever have that problem.
Yeah, right. You don't run into that.
For those people who do that have contacted me, this is what I do. The first thing, I check the troublesome people to see if they are possessed. Now, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. We won't get into how to do exorcisms right now, but that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I would also check to see how compatible their spirit guides are. Now, spirit guides is a Native American terminology that I found very useful to use. And I'll tell you how. I have a friend, she's 91 years old, Evelyn Rattray in British Columbia. And she told me several years ago when I was up there working with her, if you're trying to heal somebody and your spirit guides don't like their spirit guides, you're not going to be able to help them.
Yeah.
And all at once I thought, wow, that is why parents and kids, bosses and employees, sometimes husbands and wives don't get along. Tom, you would be amazed at the number of people that I've worked on that didn't get along because the spirit guides didn't like each other. I realize the folks who have a scientific mind, this sounds totally insane, but I can't help that, folks. I get results with what I do.
Yeah.
So whether you believe it or not is your problem, not mine. But I found a way to eliminate, and it's very simple, to eliminate the troublesome spirit guides. People have the mistaken belief that all spirit guides are benevolent and helpful. Simply not true. I used to think the same thing, but I don't think it now. And all it takes is a little bit of investigation with dowsing to really see where the problem is. And we have helped so many people get along better. Not everyone now, no, because people have free will and some people don't want to do any better. But overall, we've helped an awful lot of people solve problems just by getting the spirit guides compatible. Now, do the people themselves know that they have a problem? No, they don't. They don't have a clue. But we don't need to tell them. We just go ahead and fix this. Stay behind the scenes. Don't make a big deal out of it. Do it quietly, and usually things turn out a whole lot better. Another thing is you want to check the person's integrity. I had someone contact me the other day that they had spent quite a bit of money on something, and they asked me if it was worth it. I said, well, why weren't you smart enough to ask me before you spent the money? I would have told you that the person's integrity was 40%, and that's not enough to invest money with people.
Yeah.
So do I check people's integrity? You better believe I do.
Yeah.
I do it for my clients. I mean, it just makes sense. Before you spend any money with anybody, check their integrity.
Yeah.
This is where dowsing comes in extremely handy.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to give some real short answers here to your question.
And Raymond, the one I was thinking about too, though, you gave me a very simple little strategy where you said, just in your mind, imagine that person doing something that makes them happy. And,
exactly.
Or sometimes you put imaginary flowers on people, right? But when you do that in your mind, and I've used that technique. So thank you for that, where someone's like being a little bit abrupt with me, and I just quickly see them happy, or maybe it's someone in my family, right? And, we're a little argument. I see them happy, and it's amazing that how quickly that can turn someone around.
Well, it goes back to what the old German philosopher said: see them as they could be, and they'll improve.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that guy was pretty sharp to figure that out.
Yeah.
But here's an example. It's just a very simple example. Let's say somebody likes to ride a horse, and they're grouchy or they're giving you a hard time, whatever. Imagine riding a horse. They like to do that. That'll make them happy. That scene alone will help that person change their attitude, and they'll never know what you did.
Yeah. Now talk about why that works. And you've already explained it, but when you do that scene of someone riding a horse, because you know that they would be happy riding a horse, what's going on between you and them there? Explain that to people, because some people might not understand that yet.
Well, in all honesty, I don't know that I understand it. I just know it works. But it's probably because energy follows thought. See, everything we're talking about today is pretty much based on that one principle. And well, there's another one, and I don't know who said this. I think Einstein said it, that imagination is more important than knowledge, because knowledge is a combined or a combination of everything we know. Imagination is unlimited.
Yeah.
So by using imagination and thinking of what you want instead of what you don't want, those two things alone will change your life for the better.
Yeah.
But if you are around people that bitch, whine, and complain about poverty, aches, pains, the boss they work for, some people that do nothing but complain all the time. I keep those people out of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? Because their energy is just as contagious as my energy is. They will affect me if I listen to them long enough, so I don't listen.
Yeah.
People think they have to be polite and listen to somebody else bitch, whine, and complain. That's not true at all.
Yeah.
That's a choice you choose to make, and I choose not to be there.
Yeah. I love that.
See, I'm about freedom, Tom. The only thing I really believe in is kindness and freedom.
Yeah.
That's the two main things.
Yeah.
I like being nice to people. I like to help them improve their life, and I believe in freedom.
Yeah.
And another thing, people ask too many what ifs and whys and all that. I don't ever ask questions like that. I just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, think about, I mean, everyone, as you're watching Raymond talk, this was a man who at one point in time was a young man in a small town without exposure to any of these thoughts that he's talking to us about and belief systems. But the one thing he did have was his imagination. And with his imagination, now he's created an organization and a presence where, is it people from 142 different countries you've helped, some crazy big number like that, you know, people all over the world. And that happened because you used your mind, your imagination to grow and to reach people and to help people. So anyone watching Raymond, I hope you're inspired by him, because he's laying out for you, and he's got lots of more tools that you can get from him to really start to shift your life, to shift the life of people you love, to shift the health and happiness of the planet, Mother Earth. He's working with water all over the world with his mind. I love, and we told this story time before, but I love the story. It's one of my favorites of how you helped the farmer who had weeds in his hay crop. Can you tell that story again? It's just such a powerful story.
I love telling that story because I have a saying about farmers. It's bad manners to cuss a farmer with your mouth full. So farmers are what feeds the whole nation, and that's why farmers are among my favorite people. They're most of them are really pretty good people. Another thing is they have to be intelligent because they got a lot of decisions to make. They got to work with nature. They got to work with the markets. They got to work with weather. You can't be a real dummy and be a farmer. You just can't stay in business like that. Yeah. So farmers have to have a reasonable degree of intelligence. But this one fellow was a good friend of mine, and he called, and this has been several years ago. This has been probably 9 or 10 years ago. And he's asked if I would do him a favor. And I said, well, I certainly would if I could, but what do you need? He said, well, I had some weeds in my alfalfa field, and I called the local farm supply company to send a truck out with a sprayer on it to spray for the weeds. Well, the problem was the fellow driving the truck picked up the wrong jug of chemicals. He picked up a jug of Roundup, and he sprayed 20 acres of alfalfa with Roundup. And I knew what Roundup would do to things. I mean, it just destroys it. So I said, well, how long will it take to remedy the situation? He said, a year. I've got to plow the ground, sow alfalfa again, and wait another year before I have any hay for the cows. That meant he was going to have to buy hay that year. And that alone was enough to bankrupt a small farmer.
Yeah.
And I said, well, hold on a minute. Don't plow it up yet. Give me 2 days and let me see what I can do. Now, in all honesty, Tom, I didn't know what I was going to do. But I thought, I've got to think of something. So he didn't call me in 2 days. I never heard from him for a month. And then he sent a picture of the day they cut alfalfa that was 4 feet tall, which is quite a bit taller than alfalfa would normally grow. And then at the end of the year, he contacted me and he said, I normally get 3 cuttings of alfalfa from that field. This year I got 5. So we really pretty much doubled his hay crop for the year. Now, we did it because I didn't have all the facts. He told me that the field had been sprayed with Roundup. What he didn't tell me was that there was not a single alfalfa plant living. Everything was totally dead.
Right.
Had he told me that, I would have logically known it was impossible to do anything. But since I didn't know it was impossible. So what I did, I use a term, and I do this with cleaning up water for people literally every day. Part of my energy clearing project for people, and if people want to know about the energy clearing project, go to RaymondGraceFoundation.org and look up energy clearing project. And this is what I do for people, because one of the goals was to give everybody that's on our clearing list good drinking water.
Yeah.
Well, I use a term called scramble the frequency. So I scrambled the frequency of Roundup and turned it into fertilizer. Now, I did it because I didn't know I couldn't.
Yeah.
I didn't have all the facts.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best experiments that we've ever done.
Miracle.
I was just always happy to tell that story.
Yeah.
Because it just shows what the human mind can do when you don't know you can't do it.
I love that story. So in his mind, everybody, he didn't see it as Roundup. He scrambled the frequency, the energy frequency of Roundup, and in his mind, like he didn't go to the field. In his mind, this is the power of what you can do and what Raymond can teach you to do. He changed it into fertilizer, and that the crops grew back from Roundup. And he had more cuttings and higher, and made more money and a higher height of the crops. So just truly amazing. I absolutely love that story. One of my all-time favorites from you. And look, it's not just hay crops and Roundup. Like, this is what we can do to heal our bodies. We create our bodies with our mind. We create illness with our mind. We can create health with our mind. And a lot of your work is on water and different things, but also you are an amazing healer. And I know that's what a lot of people come to you with. Can you talk a little bit about dowsing? I'm sure you probably have you've got your pendulum with you, but can you just tell people what dowsing is? And this is kind of what you can also teach them, or they can find out through your books and videos.
I'll be glad to as soon as I can dig the bullet out of my pocket here.
Yeah, and Raymond, by the way,
I've got a pocket full of stuff.
Yeah, but his dowsing pendulum is a bullet, right? You know, he wears a pistol wherever he goes. You know, there's all sorts of things he needs to make sure that he's protected from as a mountain man. He got bears and all sorts of stuff up there. But show us. Yes, did you get it?
All right, here we are.
Okay, cool.
Right here is my version of a pendulum. Now, folks, it doesn't matter what kind of a pendulum you use. You can make it out of wood, stone, you can tie a nut on a string. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to give you just a real short version of it right here. But start with holding up the chain or string by the thumb and forefinger. It's easier for me to tell you how to do it right than it is for me to tell you all the ways of doing it wrong. So this is the way you hold a pendulum, okay? And ask it. Now, you can come to my website, I believe it's on there somewhere, and get a free dowsing chart. I've got it out there. You feel free to make as many copies of it as you like. I put it out there to help people to learn to douse. But hold a pendulum like this and ask it to give you a yes. And a yes is a moving away from you and towards you. That's real simple. Then ask it to give you a no, and it will go this way. Okay, crossways. All right, that's yes and no. Now, use that only for practice for a while. Do not try to solve every problem with a yes or no, because it's insufficient. Now, let me give you an example. The best way to use the dowsing chart, it's on a percentage scale. I'm not going to try to verbally describe it because we've got them in, you can look at, and they're free. But the top half of the scale is a percentage scale. On the right-hand side is 0 to 100. On the plus side, on the left side is 0 to 100 on what I call the minus side. So you always ask, what is the result of your actions? Rather than, should I do this? Don't ask that question. Ask, what's the result of your action? Whatever it is you want to do. So I usually just use dowsing food. So when I'll tell this story, I don't think I told it before. When April was a little kid, about maybe 5 years old, she had learned a little bit about dowsing, and she wanted a soft drink one day. And I said, well, April, I've already checked the soft drink, and I know the effect on your body is something like about a minus 70 or something. It's really not good. It's got too much junk in it. But here's the deal. I'll give it to you unopened. And here's my pendulum. You take the pendulum and you work on this soft drink. And if you can get it up to, let's see, I think I told her about a minus 20, which is not too bad for you, you can have it. Well, she intently worked on it there for a few minutes, handed it back to me to check. She got it up to about a plus 70. And I was very much surprised a little 5-year-old kid could do that.
Yeah.
I said, well, here it is. Drink it. Enjoy it. You earned it.
Yeah.
Well, a few days later, I saw her eating a chocolate chip cookie. And I said, I didn't see you raise the energy of that cookie. She said, I don't have to. She said, I have programmed myself that anything that I like to eat or drink is automatically good for me. I was never able to prove her wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was intent. Why? Because she didn't know she couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, and you one of the things you teach people is to program your mind with positive phrases that then become part of your belief system. And I told my son, Tommy, who you met, about that. He was working on a deal to with his senior partners to buy a large company. And so he programmed his mind to always, one of yours, always be in the right place at the right time. And he calls me a week later. He says, Dad, you're not going to believe what has just happened. I go, what? He goes, well, I'm walking down the street and this guy's running, jogging, out for exercise, running towards me. And all of a sudden he stops right in front of me. And he said, he told me, I don't know why I'm stopping. I don't even usually run here. My son lives up in Los Angeles. He goes, but something tells me I need to talk to you. And so my son said it freaked him out a little bit, right? I said, how old was the guy? He goes, Dad, he was old. He was like your age. And the guy asked him, what do you do? And my son said, well, I'm an investor. And he goes, I'm an investor too. And they chatted for a couple minutes, nothing really substantial. But the guy said, look, if there's any reason that we should talk, make sure that you reach out to me, and gave him his information, and he jogged off. So my son went back, looked him up. The guy ends up being a billionaire who had a $4 billion company that was doing investments. And my son called him up. He said, I think we should talk. And so, make a long story short, they end up meeting, and that guy commits $100 million to the deal that my son Tommy was working on. And he brought in another guy that committed another $100 million. So Raymond, your work works. I know we could go on and on and on. We're going to have to end now, but I really encourage people. Raymond has become a great friend of mine. I encourage people to check out his work at raymondgrace.us or raymondgracefoundation.org. He does amazing things, and he really is a person of service to humanity. And thank you so much for being on with us. Do you have any final words to add, Raymond?
Well, I wasn't really prepared for a final statement, but just always believe in yourself.
Yeah, I love it. And that's what you've done. That is what he has done. He has some of the most powerful belief of anybody that I've ever encountered. And I've told him this many times, and he's been a role model for me with that, because I think I have a pretty powerful belief system. But then I come across Raymond and I'm like, all right, I got to up my game. And so you've helped me do that. You are a gift to the world. Again, thank you so much. Everybody check out his work, and you will be better for it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Tom. I always enjoy talking with you, and all you folks listening out there, if you have any questions, you can contact me through my website.